And then there was one.
Oh, yeah. Answers by guess. Merry Christmas Eve there, guess.
Merry Christmas Eve there, Rob.
What's up there, brother?
Oh, StreamYard was like, what the hell are you doing? It's Tuesday morning.
They had no clue. They had
Not
no
working.
clue. Dude, glitches all over the place.
Yeah.
We got a little snow over here, so shoveling. But, dude, 3 championships I made. Holy
Nice.
moly,
Congrats.
guacamole. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Good. Yeah, I remember those days. Just one for me and one consolation tourney championship. Jalen Hurts getting knocked out ruined me versus you, but I don't know if it would have mattered anyways. My team didn't show up and yours did. So congrats. Good luck.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, fingers crossed that things work out well this weekend. All right, guys. We are the Inside Scoop from Outside the Box. Always like us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X, Patreon, and Spotify. Always look for those hashtags answered by guests. Like guest said, this is championship week for most. The games were exciting this weekend. I felt like it was higher scoring games. I felt like fantasy, a lot of people were putting up a lot of points. Did you see the same?
Yeah, games were good. A couple things.
Calls by you, man.
Yeah. Josh Allen, for one. I got to make that video. Yeah, so sorry if you're Josh Allen owner, but you survived. I mean, I just had a feeling. And that's kind of what we do here.
Yeah.
And a couple other things like to go along with that. Like my idea going into today, 16 weeks down and 1 to go. This is the last one for this season. This will be our last show for this season. And we're both tied up, obviously, to be expected throughout the rest of the week. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was if you go back and you look at the beginning of the season, you remember right before week 3 when the Saints were the best and the Eagles were terrible? Right? How could things change? Remember that call?
Oh, yeah.
So, but the Saints are decimated. First shutout of the year. Packers handed it to them. I mean, they got nobody left. Then also one of the preseason calls for me was that CJ Stroud was going to have a sophomore slump, and I think that's true. And I also thought that Bryce Young would be a lot better, and it didn't start off good, but man, that's looking good. And so as of right now, heading into year 3 next year, it'll be interesting to see who emerges as the best quarterback from last season, between those two at least. And one thing before we get into him, we'll talk a little bit when we get to it, but he didn't look well. You take that interception that Kyle Pitts, he's forgotten how to play football. But Michael Penix looked really good. And here's my hope. And we got nobody watching right now, and that's okay. It's Christmas Eve, and everybody's busy. Well, here's my hope, and this is why I hate doing this, Rob. I hate doing the answers by guess, but my hope is that Michael Penix does not play very well, or at least on the surface, in the stat box over these final 2 weeks, because I think next year he's going to be an amazing value for people. But if he explodes these next 2 weeks, people are going to be all over him next year. But my hope, and you can write this down, December 24th, 2024, Michael Penix is going to be an extreme value next year if these next 2 weeks on the surface, on paper, in the stat box don't look amazing. Because some of the throws he was making were amazing. He looked in his very first start that he knew exactly what he was doing. Now, granted, it's against the Giants, so that's why I'm saying these next 2 weeks, because we get him a full offseason as the starter. I think next year is going to be great things. They got great weapons, and I like what I see out of Michael Penix after 1 week. And that was one thing I talked about a couple days ago when we did the week 16 show.
16,
So,
yes, sir.
So that's one takeaway. So he's somebody I'm targeting for next year. And now are all the people I'm playing against that are watching this, including Rob.
I wasn't taking any notes, I promise. I was looking at my final Christmas list here to make sure I had everything. I was just checking some boxes.
Okay.
All right. First game here. Kansas City Chiefs.
What was that?
Here.
I heard like a radio station come through.
Oh,
a
really?
UFO, one of those drones must have been flying over us.
Oh, no. Yikes. Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers on Christmas Day. Competitive with the NBA. The first time they're doing that. NBA usually has the Christmas slate. It's going to throw a little wrench for me. As I told you before, the Knicks are on at 12, so I think I'm going to have to watch the Knicks and then go from there. But talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, they looked okay last week against Houston. It wasn't anything great. It's pretty much what we've been saying every single week. They seem to get a win, but the thing that interests me is that Kareem Hunt got more touches than Isaiah Pacheco. And does that just mean that Pacheco's not healthy enough? Going into this week against a Pittsburgh defense that didn't play well last week, but we know what they can do, are you comfortable starting somebody, one of those running backs from the Kansas City Chiefs? And then playmakers, Kelsey's down, Hopkins is down. Like, who are we throwing this ball to? And Hollywood's got some love. Does he take a fly almost in a way? On the flip side, same kind of concept. Steelers offense did not look good last week. There's a split between Warren and Harris. Pickens is coming back, though, for this game. Does that change the dynamic of what Pittsburgh can do with him on the field?
Yeah, you and I were talking as we were getting ready for the show. I thought, finally the NFL does something smart with scheduling. We talked about the two Mageddons this year and how ridiculous it was, but they had these 4 teams play last Saturday, and now the same exact 4 teams are playing on a Wednesday. They just switched opponents. So I think that's very cool and very smart by them. They're like, hey, these guys got to play each other. Let's do it these weeks back to back. We could do it these days. I think it's going to work out. And for this game, the Steelers didn't look too great, and the Chiefs got bailed out by another penalty, non-penalty type of thing. No, granted, they pretty much had it in hand, but Tank Dell getting knocked out of that game certainly helped because he was burning the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I don't know what the line is. If I were to guess, it's probably 4.5. I feel like I said that too much, but I kind of like the Steelers in this one. I feel like the Chiefs have just been sneaking by just a little too unluckily, and the Steelers didn't look really good last week. You mentioned all the guys out for the Chiefs, and the Steelers getting back to full health with Pickens. I think Hollywood Brown looked really good. So if he could finish another game through this one, I think he's playable. I think if you're in a dynasty league, I might have said this a few weeks ago. Noah Gray needs to be picked up. I think Travis Kelce's he might hang it up after this one. I mean, if they end up winning 3 in a row, he definitely does. But I think regardless, I think he's just about had enough. He's got a life to now try and have with his girlfriend, and I think that could be it. So I think Noah Gray is a perfect fill-in for championship week. I mean, he's been productive with Kelsey there. So if there's no Kelsey, or even slightly, I think that Noah Gray is a good play for this week. But heading in the future, Dynasty League, you need to pick him up, whether you're a Kelsey owner or not. Because going into next year, if Kelsey does retire, he's going to be a top 5 tight end right off the bat. I like the Steelers in this one. I think I would play Pickens if I had him and I made it to championship day, and for whatever reason I needed a wide receiver. Jaylen Warren, to me, has been the best fantasy running back for the Steelers because he catches a ton of passes. That has been the easiest prop. I wish I would have just put my mortgage on his yards and his receptions over the past 2 months every single game because it's so low for Vegas. So if you're looking for a prop play, that's a good one. But I like the Steelers in this one. And if I'm playing any Chiefs, you can't feel great about the 2 running backs, but I think Hollywood is probably the best bet other than Gray.
Yeah, man. I'm going to need a hope and a wish. I have Pickens and Garrett Wilson, and I already have Devontae Adams on one of my championships teams. So it's like, do I play Pickens over Wilson, or do they actually feed Wilson because of the comments and stuff like that? So that's going to be a choice for me this week. And then it's a Wednesday game, which I'm not a big fan of these kind of games. So, all right, like you said, the flip switch: Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans, Christmas Day. This is the afternoon game. Ravens looked good, though, last week against the Steelers. The tight ends got the touchdowns. Zay Flowers looked good. Henry show. They were feeding him. This is the whole point that they had said. This is why we got Henry. Do we see the same exact concept? Is it those guys and Lamar that we can play? Are we okay with playing a likely in this type of situation? Now the Texans, they picked up Deontay Johnson, a quick revenge game. Holy moly. Do they get him started? And he's somebody to be looking at for championship week. And then as far as the rest of your Texans mixing with the down game, like you said, Stroud going through that slump, is losing players left and right. That was his best friend. You saw the emotion on him. Does that get into his head? And then the Ravens beat up on these Texans.
Yeah, I was wondering where Deontay was going to go. I was thinking maybe the Packers. And like, they don't need to ruin the chemistry. I was thinking the Chargers. And I figured they'll just figure it out next year. So the Texans a good spot, especially after losing Dell. So we'll see. I'm not sure if he'll be able to play this game, but I mean, if he can come in and get a few snaps and not fall down, he might be able to help the Texans, because that's all he did in Baltimore was fall. I'd like to say that I like the Texans' chances in this one, but, Mixon's going to be going against a tough rush defense, and they haven't been throwing him enough passes over the past 2-3 weeks. And I just think that the Ravens are sort of on that collision course, and they should be able to get through this one. Luckily for Stroud, it is a weaker secondary than he played last week, and he had some success last week until kind of the third quarter-ish, right? And Dell was out. So we'll see, but I like the Ravens in this one. I think Flowers is viable, Andrews as well. It gets tough when you're down to championship week and nobody's got any questions because there's so few guys that even matter at this point. But Nico and Mixon probably have to remain in your lineups. But I think it'll be another tough one for Mixon. I thought he would be a little more successful last week, but they kind of went away from him. And he couldn't get much going when they did give him the ball against Kansas City.
Yeah, it scares me, man. I lost Kamara. I have Mixon in our biggest league. I'm between him and Jerome Ford right now, to be honest with you. Ford looked good, and Bucky Irving's my other guy. So I'm definitely playing Bucky. But I started off so hot with Mixon and Kamara for so many weeks. It's like, how do you take them out championship week? So tough choice to make.
The one good thing I'll say to you, Rob, because you mentioned it about George Pickens, he's had 3 weeks off. So although it is a Wednesday game, he's had 3 weeks off.
Yeah,
and it's a Wednesday game. It's really a Thursday game because they played Saturday.
True.
And we've seen some Thursday games have been productive. I mean, other than that 49ers Rams fake game, everything's been pretty good. I mean, the one you watched in my house this past Thursday was
awesome. Yeah,
it was a good game. So.
Yeah, we actually said that, I think, to each other. It's like, besides that one game, I felt like Thursday nights are definitely have stepped up a lot.
Yeah.
All right, going on to the next one here. If there is a Thursday night football game as well, Seattle Seahawks at the Chicago Bears. Looks like there's a possible chance of rain for this one. Seattle coming off of a close game. JSN went off again. Metcalf got a touchdown, looked better as well, but the run game wasn't there. Again, same type of situation in championship week. Are we trusting any of these guys that are running the ball? I think I saw 5 or 6 guys run the ball, if I'm not mistaken. And then are those other two good to go? Barner, could he be a slick start or a DFS guy this week? And then on the flip side, you posted it on there. Chicago Bears suck. They don't know how to play football for pretty much, it seems like 3 quarters out of the 4 usually of the game. But everybody put up yards. You saw Keenan Allen do well. You saw Dunze do okay. You saw Moore do okay. The run game's really not there, but Swift actually did okay. But still, are we trusting any of our Chicago Bears this week?
At least the matchup for them this week is a little bit better, I feel like, than it has been. The Lions secondary is terrible, but the Bears are the worst, as I said. So it's just they're at home. This is a one hurrah. last time, Thursday night on the main stage, bright lights. We'll see. But I think if you got this far with either Allen or Dunze or DJ Moore, I think your best bet is to just go ahead and do it, because I feel like the Seahawks are going to be able to score. DK back, like you said, with a touchdown, his second game back since he was out for one or two. JSN is doing exactly what I thought he would do from the jump. He's one of my favorite players heading into this season. And yeah, Barner, I think I would rather go the Noah Gray route for this week over him. But certainly viable if for whatever reason you're out at tight end, like we spoke about. So it's really those two. The running back's tough because Walker got banged up.
Sharp looks banged up too, man.
Yeah, Sharp was banged up going into the game. So, and the Bears they're okay to run against, but they're certainly better against the run, I would say. And I think that their offense will be able to score Chicago enough against Seattle in this one, hopefully early, that it will make the Seahawks, do what they do. They when they throw the ball to Walker and they throw the ball to Charbonnet, great things happen. And we'll see about that running game. But really, it's two guys for Seattle and three guys for the Bears. I'm not going to mess with Kmet or Swift in this one because they just don't use Swift. They did for like 6 weeks. They did it exactly the way he needs to be used. And then they were like, let's try something else.
Yeah.
And they hardly used Roschon last week. They were down to one. They didn't even give it to him. So it's championship week. We're not playing around. There's three guys on the Bears and two guys on the Seahawks you could use. The running back situation's tough, especially on a Thursday night. We'll see if there's any practice that happens today or tomorrow, which is just crazy. You're going to have these guys practice on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but
professionals,
it's your job.
It's your job. All right, going on to the first Saturday game, because there's 3 Saturday games as well. Los Angeles Chargers at the New England Patriots. There's a chance of snow, very slight, but had to put it in there. Chargers side, can you start Justin Herbert against this New England Patriots defense who just played well against the Bills? And is it Gus Edwards and McConkey are only trustworthy as far as the other guys on this team for championship week? On the flip side, I actually liked what I saw from May. I think Stevenson is a must start still in this situation, even though it is the Chargers defense. Anybody else we should be looking at? I know Hunter Henry got the late touchdown. He was involved early, and then they went away from him, which I didn't understand. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems to be the way. And I don't get it. And that could be coverage. This week, we're doing this show. I haven't watched back on anything because it just ended. And it is what it is. But my guess would be that was a coverage thing. Hey, we're getting killed by Hunter Henry. Let's start doubling him or running some sort of traps on him. But for the Patriots, I think it's Ramondre. I know Booty. I believe he scored a touchdown, right?
He did.
But we're not going to mess too much with this. I think you obviously are going to go ahead and play Ladd. And really, that's about it. I'm not going to put my championship on the line with Quentin Johnston, no matter how much I think that, sometimes he explodes. And I'm not going to do it with Josh Palmer. They just don't use him enough. The tight ends for the Chargers don't really do it for me because there's essentially 3 of them now, possibly. So it's really down to Ramondre and Ladd are the only 2 that I think, you must start because Ramondre's going to be big in the passing game. Chargers have a good rush defense, but when you throw to the running backs, that negates everything.
All right, next one here, Denver Broncos at the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the afternoon Saturday game. This
Big
one
game.
looks like it's going to be a rainy one. Big game. You are 100% correct as far as value. If Cincinnati beats the Broncos, they have still a chance to make the playoffs. Broncos win. The Cincinnati Bengals are out. So, talking from a Broncos perspective, we watched them together on Thursday Night Football, and you kept on saying to me, I was like, Javonte Williams. He's like, you got Javonte Williams? I'm like, no, I'm just excited to see him getting the ball. He had the most receptions, I think, on the team, but didn't have a lot of yardage. Estime was in there as well. Sutton didn't have a great game, but this secondary for the Bengals we've seen is not the greatest. Is Sutton really your only choice here from a Denver's Broncos that you would feel comfortable with? What about Bo Nix? And then Cincinnati, top 4. We've mentioned it plenty of times. Those guys are your guys. Iosivas could be maybe somebody that I'm looking at. Would you be looking at him as well?
Mr. Yoshivas?
Sorry. Iosivas, Yoshivas,
yeah, well, you pronounce it phonetically.
Yeah, that's the way it looked like.
Did.
Yeah.
What can we do? It's the English language, even if it isn't. So the top 3, I would actually say for the Bengals, unless you're including Burrow.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Sorry, Burrow. That's
the Broncos. They didn't. Am I correct? They used like 8 different running backs in that game. It seemed like they just brought in
Javonte Williams, Watson, and Mims even had a.
Didn't Burton score?
No, that was Estime scored for them running.
I remember watching it and we're like, they've used 8 different running backs.
We couldn't figure out who the hell Watson was.
Watson was one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that just eliminates them. You go ahead, you put Sutton in. This is the Bengals defense. This is a Sutton get right game. If you're sour at all about last week with him, this is the one you put him back in. I'm rooting hard for the Bengals. I just want to see them in the AFC playoffs, and it's nothing against the Broncos. I like them. I like Bo Nix, but I just want to see the Bengals get in. The Broncos, I would imagine, still have a shot next week, even if they lose this game. So I'm going to root for the Bengals in this one. So I don't know if it's with my heart or my head, but I think the Bengals are going to win this game. I think last week is going to hit hard with the Broncos just a little bit. And I think that the Bengals are going to smell blood in the water and jump all over this team. I think their defense will try and rise up a little bit to stop some things and trick Nix a little. But you play your main guys, and that's, for me, Nix, Chase, and Higgins, as well as Burrow. And I'd be fine with a Nix if you got to a quarterback, if you got this far with him, if you own Jalen Hurts and you're in the championship and he's still out.
I'm back and forth between him and Purdy, to be honest with you. I have him or Purdy's playing Monday night against Detroit, which they get to give up a bunch of points too. So I like the Monday night feeling. That's the only reason.
I know, but I might go with Nix if I'm being honest with you, Rob.
All right. Something to look at.
It's a much easier matchup.
Yeah. Saturday choice. All right, going on to the next one here. Saturday night game, Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams. So Arizona had a chance. They tied it up at the end to then lose it. Chuba came through for the Panthers, but again, it was such a weird game. They scored points, but it was James Conner, I felt like, and nobody else really did very much. Him and Kyler, and it seems to be him and Kyler. That's really the only thing that they have going. We saw Michael Carter come out because James Conner did come out of the game. Looks like Conner's going to try to play this week. Not sure why he would. I think they're mathematically eliminated now, if I'm not mistaken. Can we trust anybody besides Trey McBride and Conner if he does play? And then Los Angeles Rams played against my Jets. Again, same kind of concept. Kyren Williams, Puka, and Stafford didn't look great. No. Are those the only 2 guys that you can play? Even Cooper Kupp, I thought this would be an ebb and flow kind of game. We mentioned it on the Saturday show. What do you think, or Sunday show? What are you thinking as far as, is Cooper Kupp a playable guy against these Cardinals?
Yeah, divisional matchup. I think you will play Kupp. You might as well. He would have gotten you this far if you've survived his duds. I think this is a game that the Cardinals could win. And the only reason I feel that is because they were so close. And you look at it and be like, yeah, well, they were so close against the Panthers. Well, the Panthers, I would venture to say, are better than the Jets this year and this point. And the Rams won that game in weird ugly fashion. Like that game was that was
Horrible is the way to describe it.
yeah. And the Jets games, I feel like have been that way. And if you include last week with the Rams, so have the Rams games.
Mm-hmm.
And with 2 ridiculously fake wins in a row, to add on to their 4 or 5 in a row or 6 in a row, whatever it is for the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one, I think the Cardinals could look at this and play spoiler just a little bit. Being eliminated, well, here's your divisional foe. Connor, like you said, going to try and play. Benson got hurt. So they're down to, like you said, Michael Carter. He's not somebody you're going to play this week, though. You can't in championship week turn to Michael Carter. As much as we may have liked him in the past and think he got a raw deal with the Jets and how much we liked him as a 5-guy for your eye at one point last season, you're not going to turn to him in championship week. Trey McBride had a really down week. Marvin Harrison started off hot, and then they went away from him. So they have enough weapons. They're going to be playing in obviously nice weather indoor, right? So I like the Cardinals' chances in this one to play upset and to win this game. And I think in order to do that, they'll have to keep up with the Rams. So you didn't make it this far playing Marvin Harrison, but I'm going back to the well because I've been a week too soon. I was a week too soon with Schultz. I was a week too soon with Debo, as we saw him do last week, what I thought he would do, actually last week. So I'm going back to the well, Marvin Harrison. I think he has a big game in this one. If we were doing this show on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I would have looked up this number by now. But I'm going to look it up right now. I want to see the last time they played, how Marvin Harrison did against
the Cardinals. That's a good question.
No, against the Rams.
The Rams, sorry, that's what I meant.
4 for 130 and 2 touchdowns.
Maybe he likes playing the Rams.
I like the Cardinals in this one. And I think if you got this far and for whatever reason you need to put him in, I'd put him in. It's risky championship week, but I like him this week. I feel like I was a week early, so I'm going to go ahead and say it.
All right, let's go on to the next one here. These are the Sunday afternoon games starting the 1 p.m.ers. Indianapolis Colts at the New York Giants. Another chance of rain. It's funny. Every time I was writing each game, I'm like, oh, man, it must be raining on the East Coast because chance of rain, dome, chance of rain. But going back to this game, Colts almost blew it last week. Taylor had a game of a lifetime. Richardson, I was told you, I was like, I'm worried about playing him. I'm happy that I did. He ended up being the best quarterback out of my choices that I had. They looked okay, though, and then the defense just melted somehow, which I just didn't understand what was going on. What are we feeling comfortable with from an Indianapolis Colts standpoint? I've never had a phone call on here, so that's very interesting, very weird.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so perfect timing on that. But anyways, the New York Giants.
It was Anthony Richardson calling to say you're welcome.
It could be. It definitely could be. And then the New York Giants side of things, I didn't even know there's an answering machine on this thing. Sorry, guys. All right, there it is. All right, New York Giants side of things. Drew Lock looked horrible. Tracy with a beautiful catch in the back of the end zone. I think that was the only highlight that we saw. They played really well that first drive, and then they forgot how to play football. What are we thinking about? Is any a Giant worth starting?
On the road, Colts defense isn't as good as at home. They were good at home, like you said, for most of the game, and then they fell apart. I think that if you got Neighbors, I think he's worth a shot. I think Tracy, as long as Drew Lock remains the quarterback, is worth a shot. It's interesting how good Tracy is with Drew Lock, and then as soon as he's out, he's not even used. But luckily, he held on to the ball last week, so maybe that earned some more carries. Jonathan Taylor came out on a mission. right? He said, "I'm sorry about last week, and I will make the next team I play pay." And that he did. He continued to roll with him. Look at what Atlanta did to the Giants last week. I think you're going to see the same sort of thing here. So 2 Giants, and for the Colts, you go ahead. You stay with Taylor. You stay ahead with Richardson if you need to. And I also like Downs, and that's probably it. I don't think we could trust Pittman.
Yeah, that Pittman's a rough one, man. I don't know. I want to be able to play Pittman because we know how good he is, but Richardson's not the quarterback.
He doesn't throw to him,
and that's what it
throws
just
it down.
Yeah, it's just a tough one. All right, going on to the next one here. New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills again. A rainy game. It looks like. Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting one. But Devontae Adams been playing well. I feel like he's a possible start, but I really feel like that's really the only one that you can start. Maybe Rodgers in a tough situation. But am I thinking right? I mean, Garrett Wilson, I have to start in one of our leagues, but I'm nervous about it. But does he get fed the ball because of the comments now? And then on the flip side of things, you called it. Josh Allen did have a down game. James Cook saved the game for them in many different ways, or they're running. Actually, Ray Davis played very well as well. What are you thinking from the Bills? Do they get back on track? Shakir, I think, dropped the ball, which I think was probably the first time I've seen that. Does he get back on track against the secondary of the Jets are still pretty good. So could this be I know you said slaughter, but a closer game possibly because of at least the secondary?
Yeah, it's really those three that you mentioned, Allen, Cook, Shakir. I mean, possibly Kincaid. I really can't trust anybody else. Not trusting Cooper or Coleman or Mac Hollins. None of this nonsense. And for the Jets, Breece Hall. I think they have to lean on him more. And he was okay. But against the Bills, you can run on the Bills. And you've been able to do so for about 2 years now. So I think if they make that a point, they've got a chance to keep this in striking distance. On paper, it looks like slaughter. First view, it looks like slaughter. It's a divisional game. The Jets will be up for it. The Bills almost slipped up with one last week. I think they'll handle business, though. And if they do, then both of the Jets wide receivers come into play. Lazard with a big drop last week that I think changed that whole game. You don't see that. You don't see him drop the ball as much. I think a little bit of sun maybe in his eyes, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure, but you're right. It was a big drop in that situation. And we've seen him drop with this team, but he hasn't dropped Rodgers. He was dropping, Zach Wilson last year and a bunch of other quarterbacks that they played. But interesting situation.
I feel like that flipped the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, it's the Jets, so makes sense. Yeah. All right. Going on to another one here. Las Vegas Raiders at the New Orleans Saints. Do we just skip it? Maybe Amir Abdullah and Brock Bowers. That's the only people that I can think of. Horrible last night.
I would go back to the well with Kendre Miller.
Dude, he looked bad. But it wasn't.
It was against Green Bay. Yeah. They had no shot. They knew Rattler wasn't going to beat them. They were sending everybody. This is different. You're going against a Raiders team. I'd go Kendre Miller, Brock Bowers. That's probably it for me. Jacoby Myers, did you make it this far with him? But in all honesty, most teams that are here didn't get here playing Kendre Miller last week. And if they did, I think that you probably need him. And I think this is a get right for him if Kamara's still out, because it was just the wrong recipe last night. It was never going to happen against a Packers team at home who had lost 2 Monday night games in a row, who were going to clinch a playoff spot in the cold at night at Lambeau. It was just a bad situation. This is going to be much different playing against the Raiders in their place. I think Kendre can have success against the Raiders.
All right. Going on to the next one here. Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Bucks. Another chance of rain here as well. Carolina coming off the big win against Arizona. Thielen, again, man, Bryce Young, I feel like, looks for Thielen when he's in a jam. Thielen tends to keep on coming through. It's the comfort zone. Chuba with the huge game, like I mentioned before. Are we comfortable starting those guys? And can Bryce Young even be a spot start? I think he played really well last time against this Tampa Bay Bucks, if I'm not mistaken. And then Tampa, I don't know, man. But Cowboys gave them the game multiple times and they lost it, I feel like.
Yes.
Bucky Irving is the running back for running the ball, and Rachaad White is the running back for catching the ball, it seems like. Are we comfortable starting those guys? McMillan coming through with the touchdown. Evans always coming through. Are we feeling like those are really the main guys that we can play?
I felt really bad for my boy Baker. Rachaad White getting that ball stripped out because they were going to march right down the field and kick a field goal at worst and win that game. But now their backs against the wall. They're out of the playoffs. They need Atlanta to at least lose one, and they need to win both. And on paper, 6 weeks ago, this was an easy win. Not so fast. I think this one's going to be high scoring. So I don't know about championship week Bryce Young, but DFS Bryce Young is definitely worth it because his price is still very low. And you said it, Adam Thielen is worthy of playing. Chuba better be in your lineup if you got to the championship because he's a big reason. And for the Bucks, it's Irving, it's Evans. I think Evans is like, I want to say 180 something yards away from another 1,000-yard season or something
like that. Yeah,
2 games left to play, so they're going to be feeding him. McMillan, we loved him early on, and he got hurt, and he sort of came back and wasn't all right, but now he's putting it all together, and he's a solid number 2 for them. He's worth a flex play, I would say, in this game because I do feel like it's going to be high scoring. We'll see if Otten can come back. Not quite sure if that's going to happen, but if he does, I kind of like him as well in this one. I would play Irving, and I would be very safe feeling doing so. Rachaad White, not as much, but he's definitely worthy of a shot if that's the best you got. But again, this is championship week, so we're talking to, at minimum, 20% of leagues, and at a maximum, or whatever way you want to word it. I mean, this is like maybe like 10% of leagues, 15% of leagues. So really it's just 2 out of 14, 2 out of 12, 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys aren't even really going to matter. But if you shifted to DFS, that's why I sort of like Bryce Young there, and I think maybe you could fit Rachaad White in cheap, but he's not that cheap, Rachaad White. Yeah, I mean, for most of the season, he was more expensive than Bucky Irving, even like week 8, 9, 10. So he's still quite expensive.
Yeah, man. All right, I need Bucky Irving to come through, so I'm hoping that you are correct on this being a high-scoring game. All right, Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, likely rain. I forgot to put the percentage. My bad, but it's up there if I put it on there. As far as the Cowboys, we just talked about them. Is CD really the only comfortable start you have? Dowdle went back down to Dowdle that I've seen before. Ezekiel took a touchdown from him on the 1-2, which was a very interesting call, I thought. But am I right? Is it only him? And then on the flip side, with Hurts probably going to not play, I think they would sit him against this one. Why take the chance kind of deal? Kenny Pickett's obviously to be in there. Is everybody downgraded to a sense with Kenny Pickett? He looked okay, but is this going to be more of a Saquon game?
Yeah, he looked okay, but sometimes he just sort of held the ball too long, or he stared down his receiver. That whole game flipped when Hurts went out. Philly was absolutely dominating the Commanders, and he went out, and it looked like maybe we could, stay the ship and get to shore, but the boat collapsed, it sunk, and Philly's coming off a, dare I say, unlucky loss, and the Cowboys are coming off a lucky win. And I feel like if the Cowboys get to play against Kenny Pickett, I really like their chances to keep their playoff hopes alive. Oh no, they got knocked out.
They got knocked out already.
That's right. Well, they were playing for pride the other night, and I think that this game will be even more prideful. because now it's against your hated division rivals. But it's not at home, so they won't be as good. And Jalen Tolbert's going to be out, it looks like, with a broken hand or something. He made that great catch for the touchdown, just to sort of shove it in my face after I said it looks like he's not filling into what I thought he would. And he makes a great touchdown catch, and he gets hurt. So, yeah, they got really nobody. It's Ferguson, and you can't even play Dowdle against the Eagles. You really can't. He had this good run of 3 games, and last week came back down to earth, and now you're going against one of the toughest run defenses. The only hope that you have is if you have to play Dowdle, they get some short fields with or can control clock and field position playing against Kenny Pickett. So it's really tough. I'd bench him, but I'm good with CD. Devonta had a huge drop. If he never dropped that ball, that game's over if Philly wins. So we're talking a whole different story here. We're like, Kenny Pickett, the savior.
Yeah,
you know? So a lot of that drops on Devontae Smith. So I think you're probably past the point where you would need to use a Calcaterra, but if he's still sitting out there and whatever reason your tight end went down or goes down as this week continues, he's worth a shot going against Dallas, and of course A.J. Brown and Saquon.
All right, going on to the next one here. Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another rainy game, it looks like, or potential rainy game. Tennessee Titans came back. Oh, you're going to say something?
I was just going to say this one's fast. Bigsby, Thomas, Spears, Pollard, and if you really have to dig into it, you go Strange and Ridley.
What about your boy Chiggy, bro?
I know.
Chiggy.
I know. Chig came through late in that game. He
Last
started,
2 weeks have been looking great, man.
Yeah, Chig. I'd play Chig over Strange for sure.
All right. I like that. It's funny. I was thinking about picking up Chiggy this week and putting him in over Freiermuth. But with Pickens coming back.
I kind of like that.
Dude, Pickens coming back, I feel like opens up Freiermuth a little bit more because they have to worry about the outsides. But Chiggy's, dude, the target share that he's getting is
finally
now there.
So. Why does that not happen all year? I don't understand. And it seems it's always him, right?
Yeah.
It's not until the end of the season where he comes on, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to draft him. And you draft him, and he does nothing for 12 weeks. Why? It's been that way for 3 years now.
As soon as you drop him, that's when he starts to come on.
Drives me nuts. But let's skip this one. These teams don't matter because I see what's next.
There it is. I can't wait for this one, to be honest with you. Your Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, Green Bay coming off of a dominant win last night. Everybody on the Green Bay Packers? I mean, who's everybody? We see Wicks getting the ball 1 week. We see Dobbs getting the ball another week. We see Jalen Reed coming back a little bit. Watson had a down game. Talk to us as far as who we should be looking at. We already know Josh Jacobs is a must. And then on the flip side, obviously, Jefferson, you're playing no matter what. He finally looked like a Jefferson that I remembered and the reason I drafted him. But are we comfortable starting in Addison? Are we comfortable starting in Aaron Jones? Are we comfortable starting in Sam Darnold? What do you think?
Well, let me first start off and say I think the Packers win. The Packers have 4 losses. Their losses are 2 to the Lions, 1 to the Vikings, and 1 to the Eagles. So that's a pretty good teams there that they lost to. And I like their chances in this one because the Vikings are skirting by. Past couple is they're just sort of skirting by and getting in last week.
That was a close Seattle game, dude.
And the way this Packers defense is playing, and they were putting in effort last night, but the effort, they didn't have to put in a lot of effort last night. And I feel like to get that out of the way and know, like they knew we have a big game next week. And a lot of times teams, you can look at that as sort of like a betting angle. Like, well, they play the Vikings next week. Maybe they're going to overlook this one because it's such an easy matchup. So maybe the Saints will be able to do a few things. Saints couldn't do anything with them putting in, I would say, I mean, I'm not saying they were out there being lazy, because they certainly were not, but putting in a minimal effort, knowing that we've got the Vikings on tap next week. I like the Packers in this one. Now, the thing is, if you got to championship week and you had any Packers other than Josh Jacobs in your starting lineups, you're a lucky SOB, because really you can't use any of them with consistency, because there is no consistency other than Josh Jacobs. I mean, Watson got banged up, so you're probably not even going to really look at using him if he even goes.
Yep.
And Reed has been lackluster. He looked okay last night. Dobbs had his 2 touchdown game, but he only had 3 receptions. Wicks he had at one point 2 receptions, 1 yard, and a touchdown. How does that even happen?
I thought the same exact thing, dude. I was like, how does that work?
Tucker Kraft came through pretty good last
Early,
night.
though. He was early, but then they kind of went away from him again. But I mean, they had the game.
They didn't need to.
So,
yeah. So I mean, aside from Josh Jacobs, like, you would think play all your Packers, but it's like, no, because you don't know who it is, and you're not in the championship game if you've been playing any of them consistently every single week. I would highly doubt it, other than Jacobs. For the Vikings, a different story. You keep riding with Addison, Jefferson, even Hawkinson, my 3 sons, and Aaron Jones. Why not? Because he keeps it going. But I like the Packers to win this one.
All right, going to the other 4:00 game. Miami Dolphins at the Cleveland Browns. Another chance of rain here. Dolphins looked okay. They played pretty good last week. Achane was the main guy. So are we okay with just Achane, Hill, and Jonnu Smith? Can we play Tua this week against the Cleveland Browns team that did not look good last week? We don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be. DTR got banged up. Is it going to be Winston? Is it going to be DTR? I even mentioned before, I am thinking about playing Jerome Ford, but this Miami Dolphins defense plays pretty well. What do you think? Is there anybody that was worth starting? And Njoku getting an MRI on his knee, so he may be out too. What are you thinking?
Yeah, if Winston plays, I think Judy once again comes back into frame, because I think he fits into that type of role that could beat the Dolphins. They have a very good rush defense. I highlighted it 2 weeks ago when the Dolphins were going against the Texans, and I was like, I don't like Mixon in this one. I don't like Achane in this one, because Houston also has a good rush defense. Now, let me just start off and rewind. Achane had my favorite play of the week last week. Up, running into the end zone, not sliding. Scored the touchdown. How great was that? And how happy were you as an Achane owner in fantasy that he did not? That was my favorite play of the week.
I was going against him in our most important league too on that one. So I was like, he had just enough points for me already going against you. I'm like, all right, he doesn't need to do anything. I put my phone down. I went to the bathroom, came back. I was like, 50-yard touchdown for Achane. Oh, crap.
but still, that's what you like to see.
You're right.
It's so mad when these guys running and then they just slide down and take a knee to just run out of clock. No, score the touchdown and then get your butt back on defense and play defense so they don't score. I don't care if you're up. Let's murder their souls, right? Be a Bill Belichick in your life. It doesn't. Nothing made me happier than to see him score. I was so happy. So if you lost because of that, I'm sorry. If you won because of that, good for you. That's the way it should be played. If you've got a wide open touchdown, take your touchdown. Don't slide down. And I feel like he sort of thought about it, but then was like, nah, screw it, I'm scoring. And I was happy to see that. And so for the Dolphins, we'll see if Waddle is going to play. Probably not. Hill. The Miami defense could be a sneaky one this week if they go to Winston, because Winston's going to be good for a couple picks and a possibility at pick 6. So they're probably also sitting out there on the waiver wire. So you probably are hoping, if your defense maybe hasn't been too great and you're looking for somebody, Miami defense is available, you pick them up in the championship week and you hope you go against Jameis Winston. And even if it's not Winston, if it's DTR, you're still all right. It's just a little more conservative with DTR.
Yeah, you got to worry about his rush yards too and him getting around the outside of the pocket, but I agree. All right, moving on. Sunday Night Football. Atlanta Falcons at the Washington Redskins. This was a flex game, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Indianapolis game was originally there, and they've moved this one. Rookie quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels came back last. Oh, yeah. Now that Penix is starting, that's definitely why they flipped it.
But otherwise, it was going to be ultra revenge with Kirk Cousins. And his 1.5 arms.
We'll start with the Falcons. Bijan looking like Bijan. Mooney had a better game than London, but are we comfortable starting those two guys? Are you comfortable starting a Penix this week in Sunday Night Football primetime? You said that he looked good. Would like to see a touchdown thrown by him this week. On the flip side, Zaccheaus and Crowder were the touchdown getters.
Well, McLaurin
had his, but those are names that I wasn't expecting, especially Crowder. I totally forgot he was even on that team.
He was on the couch.
Yeah, but he's back.
Yeah.
He was looking his way, especially in the red zone. Could he be somebody from a DFS standpoint we could start? And then the running game situation is just it's Jaden Daniels pretty much. I feel like the game obviously they run the ball, but he's going to throw it. The Falcons secondary is pretty good, though. We saw them play well against the Giants, but it's the Giants. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I kind of want as many pieces as I can get. I told you, if you're just tuning in now or you were tuning in, you missed the beginning when you're only catching the end. My secret for next year, my thing I'm looking at is I don't want Michael Penix to blow up over these next 2 weeks. And unfortunately, they're playing a Sunday Night Football game where he's going to be highlighting what he can do to everybody because it's the only show in town at this time. Because I don't want him to do well over the next 2 weeks because I want to sneakily draft him next year. I don't want his draft stock to go way up. Yeah, right.
I'm not listening. I'm not listening.
Hands over my headphones.
I'm not listening.
To block out the outside noise, so all I hear is you. I want it. And, London looked okay last week. Mooney did better. And, Ray's still there. Like I said, he was the best one. And the other two guys came through more so. So Bijan is looking every bit what I thought. He's my number one draft pick next year again. He was heading into this year. I took him, or the only chance I had at number one. And I'm going to do it again next year. I don't see anybody jumping ahead of him. If you go wide receiver, I guess you could say Chase or maybe Jefferson again. But really, he's the best running back, I feel like, in the league. And he's going to have even more opportunities with Michael Penix because now people are going to have to worry about an actual quarterback that could actually throw the ball. Which they didn't have to do for much of the season with Cousins. So and you wrote Redskins there. I'm so glad that you did. Commanders, right?
Oops.
I know you didn't even notice that.
And that's the worst part about it. First of all, I didn't notice it. Secondly, how long they've been the Commanders for like 3 years now.
I almost
what happens when you rush
earlier in the show today. Well, they'll always be the Redskins. It doesn't matter how long. 20 years from now, somebody will make that mistake. It might be me. But anyways, you go with Terry McLaurin. Ben Sinnott didn't do anything.
Hurts, I think, had a catch in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's McLaurin. You can't even do anything with B-Rob. Daniels, I moved him into my championship and consolation championship lineups over the guys I had in above. I said, I'm taking the Sunday night. I'm going against the Falcons. I'm hoping for some fireworks between both these teams. I think you could sit Kyle Pitts. Just forget about him after last week. Let's just forget about him. He needs a new home. They need to get him out of Atlanta and hope for a new life. His career might be over. Because it's just not working. It's not working in Atlanta. He would be a 5 guy I despise if I was still doing that this week.
All right, going last but not least, Monday Night Football, Detroit Lions at the San Francisco 49ers. So Detroit played well against the Bears. It was the main guys, Laporta, A.J. Brown, Jameson Williams with a great catch, great over the top, and Goff. I mean, Gibbs looked like Gibbs, like you said, when there's no Monty, and people are expecting Gibbs to kind of split and out. It was a Gibbs show. Are those the five guys that I'm going with this week for Detroit? And then from a San Francisco side, they played okay. I feel like they actually played a lot better. Debo, I think you said you were a week early. Do we see those guys stepping up? Debo, great call on Patrick Taylor. Didn't get any love. Are we thinking Debo's a must start? Kittle, and can I start Purdy this week on a Monday Night Football against the depleted Detroit Lions?
The craziest part about Patrick Taylor, and I said that I would not play him. I do not expect him to do anything. And the craziest part was they gave 0 touches to Izzy Abanikanda and Keyshawn Vaughn. 0.
Yeah,
so Patrick Taylor had all the running back touches and still did diddly squat. So he's just not that guy. We, like I said when we did it on Sunday, I said we are so used to take a running back, plug him into San Francisco, he produces. But each of those guys that we've been able to do that with over the years have a particular, not skill set, but something to highlight. And, from Garendo to Mason to CMC, even back to Eli Mitchell, Patrick Taylor just doesn't have that. He was 5th on the depth chart for Green Bay as a rookie. I remember this vividly. I liked him at Kentucky, but he's just not that guy. And he's not going to do it against Detroit either. I'll be very surprised if he does. There's one thing that they're really good against on defense, and that's the run. So forget about him. Go back to the well with Debo if you have to. Juwan Jennings, I like this week. The secondary can be beat. And, of course, you're going to play Kittle. And you named all the guys, Amon, Gibbs, J-Mo does his thing. One big touchdown, get him over 100 yards, and a couple extra catches to sprinkle in. And also Laporta. So this should be a good game with a bunch of stars on both teams. And I think that you keep those guys in your lineup if they got you there.
All right, we're going to jump into your questions live. We appreciate your patience in watching us as we go through the games. Tim with the first one here. What's up there, Tim? Kyler or Purdy?
Oh, boy. That's an interesting one. You know what? I just talked about Purdy and the Niners. I think I'm going to go with Kyler. I'm going to be honest, because I do think that the Cardinals are going to win that game, that divisional game. I think the matchup, the defense is a little bit easier, even with all the injuries for Detroit. I do think it'll be a little more high scoring, which means Purdy is going to be involved in a lot of scoring. But I think the rushing yards that Kyler's going to give me is just going to put me over. It's really close, and it's really early on a Tuesday. But right now I'm leaning Kyler, but it's close. I just kind of like him just a little bit more. But that could easily change, Tim. So keep asking questions. We won't be able to go live because we're both tied up for the rest of this week and the weekend. But if you drop that in the Facebook group, I'll hem and haw over it and analyze some things when I go back and rewatch some stuff when I can. That could change, but I'm going Kyler right now.
I'm going to agree with you on Kyler just because of his legs, especially if James Conner is out. I think that actually adds for more Kyler to be running. We see him running a lot already. So, all right, all in one show. Hey there, welcome, bud. Tampa, Raiders, Saints, or Jags D?
Oh, gosh. I really think the only one that you could maybe trust out of all these guys is Tampa.
Yeah.
It's just...
They're playing Carolina. It's funny. I have Raiders defense in right now, and I'm back and forth between Raiders and Tampa. I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot with the Raiders defense, but
yeah, like the toughest part of it is that Tampa's playing the best offense. Raiders would be a close second, so I'm with you there, Rob. But if Kamara doesn't play, I do like Kendre this week, but they still have no pass catchers. And to me, Rattler's just terrible. If you don't like the Tampa play, I'm fine with going with the Raiders. I definitely eliminate the other two, but I kind of like Tampa at home, even though it's against the best offense out of the bunch.
All right, all in one show with another one here. Kelsey, Schultz, or Chiggy this week. He's saying Kelsey has been disappointed, only weakling out of his lineup.
Yeah, well, we could go to the well, and we could go with Chiggy. We can go with our boy Chiggy. Schultz call, I liked him 2 weeks ago. I was a week early because he pulled through this week, so I'm glad that I put that parlay back in for the second week in a row because he hit it. Kelsey has been disappointing, and I'm going to go with Chig.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking Chig too, man.
Chigosium.
Okonkwo just makes more sense because of the way they moved the ball last week. They actually let Mason Rudolph throw in the second half of the game,
right,
which brought them back. They were so reliant on the run game, but once they are actually letting him open it up a little bit more, it ended up helping. Target share has been there. Schultz will be a very close second, to be honest with you. I'm not playing Kelsey. I know it's weird to say that, but I agree with you. Schultz is, with Dell out, he has to step up, right? That's the only thing I have to think. That's the way you're thinking of it, but Chiggy makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I'm going with Chig.
All right. Another one from All in One Show. Or should I play defense and pick up Gus Edwards or Spears? Looks like my opponent needs stronger option at running back 2, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm definitely picking up Spears and playing defense. There was one thing I wanted to mention in the show. It's the last week, and then there was one. This is it. If you play in week 18, well, good for you. But this should be it. And you likely, and I don't mean just you all in one show, I mean everybody, you likely have guys on your bench that you are not going to use. So tonight is waiver night, and get rid of those guys, especially if they're guys that your opponent's not going to use. You should be looking at your opponent's lineup now. Who might they need? Just like All in One Show did. He said, looks like he might need a stronger option at RB2. And you should be looking to play defense. This is the one time, if you don't ever do it, I do it probably more than I should. Look at my opponents throughout the year, and maybe that bites me in the butt sometimes. But this is a week that everybody should. You should be looking at what do they need? What might they be going after? If you have a fab budget, spend all of it. Unless it carries over to next season, and even if it does, who cares? We want to win the championship now. We'll worry about next year. I'm picking up Spears, and if I have 2 guys on my bench, I'll pick up Gus too. Why not? Gus has not been great, but Spears has scored twice 2 weeks in a row, right? So let's pick him up and play defense. If you see your opponent needs a wide receiver and you've got a couple guys on your bench that you know you're not going to use and your opponent's probably not going to use them, pick them up. But pick them up for something good. If there's Michael Carter sitting out there, I don't know if I'm picking up Michael Carter to play defense. I might just be like, okay, pick up Michael Carter. Go ahead and let them make the mistake. But guys like Gus Edwards and Spears, I'm going to pick up both, and I'm going to play defense with both. And I'm going to get rid of 2 guys on my bench that I know I'm not going to use, because what's the point of holding them? It's all done after this.
100% right. And that actually plays into the next part. He said I could possibly only drop 1 player, which is Strange. That's why I kept on saying Strange, because I saw that instead of Stronger. And then he says Jennings, London, Pacheco, Pollard, Ridley, Waddle, and Strange is his bench.
All right.
I'm probably dropping Waddle and Strange and picking up those 2, right?
Yeah. I mean, what's the news on Waddle so far? But I'm putting in a waiver, Strange for Spears, and then right behind it, Strange for Edwards. And then I'll probably put in a second one that says Waddle for Edwards, because if I could end up getting 2, I might as well take them both. Unless you're in a keeper dynasty something. And next year, listen, if you're in a 1 or 2 guy keeper league, Waddle's not going to be your 1 or 2 keepers. Out of these guys, probably, I would rather keep London and Pacheco, or Pacheco and Pollard, than any of these. So definitely strange. Put in one for both those guys. You want to play defense for sure. If there's one week that you do it, it's this week. You play defense. You pick up the guys that your opponent might need. Because after this, there's nothing.
After this, there's nothing. You're 100% correct. All right, there, guests. We are at the end. We've gone through all the games. We've gone through the questions. Anything else you'd like to say there, sir?
No, it's been a great 8 season. Yeah, redrafts will be fine. Exactly. And listen, if he has 3 solid wide receivers, right? If you play 3 and there's no flex, whatever, you can drop Waddle too, because out of those guys, you're not playing Waddle anyways. You'll play Jennings, London, Ridley. And if he's got 2 or 3 good ones and no flex, he's not going to pick up Waddle and play him. And if he does, okay. He needs a running back more, is what it sounds like. So go with your gut. That's what I would do. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Season 8, it's done. Season 9, if and when it happens, might look a little different. So we'll see. So we hope that you join us for that. So all in one show. Please like and subscribe, because we'll be back next year in some form, in some fashion. And I hope you all have a great holiday season.
Same to you. Same to you, bud. And definitely ABG fam. Best of luck. If you are in that championship, go win it. Let us know. Post it on the page. Make sure to show us. Tag your friends that, that
Merry
did
Christmas.
lose. That's the best way to go about it, is to show them that you won. So, all right.
Yeah.
Best of luck and Merry Christmas. Peace, guys. Later.
Enjoy.